All right, we'll call our meeting to order. Let us all stand as we are led in our pledge by Liz Farron. She is 44 years of service to this department and the chief secretary for 20 years. Morning, Liz.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we remain standing, our invocation today by Chaplain Dennis Dewey.
Will you bow with me as I lead in a prayer? Heavenly Father, as this meeting begins, I thank you that you are here among us and ask that you would use what takes place to provide a blessing for this department and for our city. I thank you for our commissioners and for their service today as they speak, as they listen, as they make decisions. Lord, I ask that you would give them wisdom so that your will can be accomplished for us. Also pray for your continued working through Chief Smith. We thank you for his leadership. Grant him wisdom each day as he does lead this department. Father, we especially thank you for the men and women who serve us. We ask that you would provide protection for the officers as they go about their responsibilities. You'll grant them wisdom and understanding as they interact with various situations. And Lord, I ask that you would provide encouragement and strength for them in the times when they face opposition or those who would hinder their work. They especially, Lord, also want to lift up the officers to give them comfort in the loss of Officer Lopez. Give them your strength, encouragement. And Lord, I pray for John's wife and for his daughters, that you'll comfort them, encourage them, help them to know your presence and the strength you can give. So we commit this time to you now in the name of my Lord and Savior. Amen.
Commissioner, if I may, Pastor Dewey is leaving us after 28 years of service to this police department. He's married us, he's buried us, he's done everything in between, and he has been there for us always. And I just wanted to thank him for his service to this department.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Chaplain Dewey. As we move forward in our agenda, our Finance, Governance, and Public Safety Committee, Councilwoman Catherine Shields is the chair. Councilwoman Heather Hall is vice chair, and I'm not sure who's here to make the presentation this morning. All right. Well, if they're not here, we will move forward. Chief Smith.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'd like to start out with a brief presentation from Major Deichler and Brad Lemon, if they could come up, please.
Good morning. I'm Brad Deichler, and this is Brad Lemon, so you have two Brads up here. Heather Hall could not make it today, so I'm going to talk just a little bit because I don't want to take a whole lot of credit here. I'm kind of in between on this. And the reason I'm speaking is I've been involved with multiple projects over the years that are designed to serve special needs community. My wife and I have a son that is 18, and he is significantly autistic. And over the years, we've had a lot of police contact because he is an eloper. So if he gets an opportunity, he runs off. It's very stressful. And one thing I've learned during the years is we keep running into the same families like mine. And there are many families that we've been contacting for 10 years. CIT and Sergeant Hess and Mark Kenovi, myself, we've done a lot of training of police officers for the last 10 years. We have a lot of tools to use when things happen with these families. We have a new tool, and that's this sensory kit. So when someone has a situation, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be anything that's cognitive involved. This kit is designed to help calm folks down. There is a weighted blanket inside this kit. There is hearing protection to cut the noise. Like my son is really sensitive to sound. There's glasses to cut the glare. There's little toys to play with so they can just grab and kind of ease the anxiety. So these kits are starting to roll out across the country. They're really actually very important. And one of the reasons they're important is it sends a message to the families. And we care for the same families over and over. So it lets the families know that we're really trying to meet their needs. And I can tell you from personal experience that it's really difficult at times when you're trying to manage certain situations, and there's just a lot of stress and anxiety. So our main goal that we train with our cops, and we've really been training this for about 15 years, when we show up, we try to make sure they have the resources that they need. And our main goal is we don't want to make it worse, and if possible, we want to make it better. So that's what this kit is about. There's a lot of really cool tools in here. These things are just starting to roll out. We got in on the early phase. We've got some more things coming down the pike, I would say, in the next 120 days that are, I think, equally as progressive and helpful. And I am standing in a little bit for Heather because she was with us yesterday at the press release. She couldn't make it today. I'm going to finish by saying many, many thanks to Heather Hall for being behind this, because she's always been behind these projects. Very much thankful to 99. They committed all the money. Many thanks to our PD leadership, because our leadership has pushed education for KCPD officers for 15 years. And I can assure you, we've trained well over 2,000 police officers and first responders at the academy on how to handle these type of calls. And we basically train for the region wide, and I'm really proud of the training. But we've had the support of our upper management from day one, and the support of the lodge on this project is kind of a big deal because they put a lot into it. So I want to say thank you to all the folks personally, for my family, and for all the families out there that need this type of thing.
I won't take a lot of your time. I just want to say how much I appreciate Variety KC for even giving us an opportunity to get involved in this project. As Major Deichler said, we get a lot of training, and most every police officer on our department is trained in CIT in one way or another, either fully CIT or mostly CIT. We have a CIT unit. We have social workers. But one tool we didn't have was actually the physical tool to help on these kind of calls for service. So when Heather called me and said, "Hey, I've got an offer for you," it's hard to say no to Heather, no matter what. And my board didn't have a problem spending the money. Just to be honest, we're probably the first police department in Missouri that I know of that's actually doing this. So when you talking about progressive stuff and the kind of things we're doing to not just police, but to provide comfort to those that have, the struggle on a daily basis with special needs children, special needs adults, it's important for us to get engaged. We're happy to get involved. We plan on doing more down the road, but that's all I've got.
I have a question. If there are people that want to help support the lodge's work on this, can they make contributions to the lodge, or is there a separate?
Yes, ma'am. So we actually have a foundation called the Kansas City Police Officer Foundation. It's a 501c3. That's where we do all of our community service work out of. It's what we did with when we fed the school on Prospect, 2400 Prospect, for a couple of years. Those things all come out of that fund. So we raise money through the community, through fundraisers, and every Christmas that the commissioner gives money. So that money goes to that fund, and that fund goes to help take care of the 250 or 300 kids that we have every Christmas and events like this.
Okay, so the foundation would do that and other things.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Brad. Cover that in one. Thank you very much. Next up, I have Tori. Are you here? Tori is our social service coordinator, and she has a presentation to make on our social services within the PD.
Just going to get the PowerPoint in. Well, good morning.
Morning.
As Chief said, my name is Tori Common. I'm the Social Services Support Liaison for the KCPD Social Services Program. Our team consists of 6 people covering all 6 patrol divisions. I have many of them here with me today. You can see us in our matching gray polos. I have Brooke McQuiller from Central Patrol. Trina Miller covering all of the Northland. Tamara McIntosh covering South Patrol. Lindsay Moran covering Metro. And then we are missing Matt Gilmay, who covers our East Patrol division. Thank you so much for coming out today. Many of you have heard about the social services program over the last 3.5, almost 4 years. We started up at the end of 2016, and we are still going. We started with 1 person, and we have now expanded. As you can see, we've gotten a little bit larger. So just as the social services team supports our officers in the field, my job as a support liaison is to be there and support them in whatever way that looks like. Most recently, we have been making a shift towards tracking differently, looking at data specifics. And from that, we just wanted to take a moment, present to you the basics of our program, how it works, show some of the numbers of what we're seeing, and just give a few stories to try to give a little more meat to this program, because we've been talking about it for 4 years, but we want to make sure that you can see the work that this team is doing. So as I said, we cover all 6 patrol divisions. Each social service specialist reports to the major at the patrol division. They cover the entire division. That means all 3 watches, days, PMs, and dog watch. That means that you are going to have these people changing their schedule regularly to fit the needs of this department. You have some people who work 8 to 4, you have some people who work 9 to 5, and you have some people who are rotating their shifts out so they can work days, PMs, and when needed, dog watch. They all have department phones that they carry on them, and they are on call almost 24/7. If an officer goes to their command staff and says, hey, I really need one of the social service specialists, and it's 2 a.m, they can call and they answer. The social services support liaison reports directly to the executive officer of the Patrol Bureau. So what does the process look like? How do we get referrals? How do we know who needs help and what we can do? So there are 3 parts to any intervention. You have the actual referral, which can come from sworn KCPD employee. Sometimes our social services specialists are with officers on scene during a call for service, and they'll respond directly then. Then also they'll get referrals during our crime meeting. The second part you have is our assessment follow-up. No matter what the referral is, we try to make a face-to-face contact with the people that we're working with, because sometimes a phone call just doesn't do it. That face-to-face is where we build bridges. That face-to-face is where we get to know people and we get to find out what's really going on in their life and how we can best assist them. So if we get a referral directly from an officer, so they've been on a call for service and they give us the referral afterwards, or we get it from the crime meeting, we still want to take a moment and go out to the scene in person, meet that person, preferably with the officer who took the call originally, and get services. The other side is, like I said, since a lot of our social services are spending time in the patrol car, taking 911 calls, being there on the scene, being part of that toolkit that our officers can utilize to best serve this community, sometimes we are there in the moment on scene doing triage to get people services. So what do? You get the referral, you assess the situation. What are we doing for the community? There are 3 types of interventions that we will get for people in the community. We connect to long-term services, we procure necessities, and we facilitate emergency assistance. So sometimes the intervention is connecting someone to a group, an organization, case management that can walk through long-term with them so they can be there and help remove barriers long-term. Sometimes it's just getting them a specific necessary item that helps remove a specific barrier that's been keeping them down. And sometimes it's getting emergency assistance like shelter, rent assistance, utilities, so that family can break through the storm that they're going. And sometimes after that break, They don't need the help anymore. They're self-sufficient and they've got it. So, as I said, we've been really looking at our statistics recently. Up until this point, our social services program has been using anecdotal weekly update sheets to show what we're doing. We say we've had this many referrals, we helped with these things, we connected to these services, and we send it to our command staff when we move on. That's wonderful for accountability. It's wonderful for anecdotes, but it doesn't necessarily give you the data and the specs that we're needing. So we have spent the last 6 months to a year taking all of those data sheets and inputting them into a data system so we can be more proactive in what we're doing, so we can look for trends, so we can see what's going on in our community, and as such, try to get more resources to help with those things. So when we put in the data, these are some of the things that we found. In particular, I want to focus on the fact that when we expanded in 2018, we had an average of 28 referrals per week. In 2020, we're now at 43 referrals per week. We are getting busier. We're getting more referrals from officers. We're in the cars with them, getting there on scene, getting more proactive, and just trying to get out there and make a difference. Over 40% of our referrals overall came from 2020 alone. That means in the middle of a pandemic, when everything was crazy, when everything was different, that team was there in the field working with our officers, supporting them. We also were able to see by patrol division, what are the needs? We have 6 patrol divisions here in Kansas City, and they are all very different, as you can see from that breakdown. And as such, we want to make sure that the team is supported and able to help people as it's needed. So with that in mind, we have the stats. We've explained what the process looks like, that we have all sorts of different ways of getting referrals and different ways of helping people. I want to give a little bit of meat to this. I want to show some of the stories, because it's one thing to hear that KCPD Social Services got enough food to feed 30,000 people last year and gave it out. But what about the families that impacted? It's something to hear that they're helping with housing, that they're helping with utilities. But what does that actually look like for these people that we're working with, for these people that we're supporting? So first off, let's talk about housing. Oftentimes when we think about housing, we think, oh, housing is all about finding affordable housing. That's not always it. Sometimes it's not just affordable housing. Sometimes it's barriers that keep the housing from starting to begin with. If you look in this top left picture, there's a little crate. That is a bunny rabbit. I never would have thought when I started this job that one of the parts of my job would be finding housing for a rabbit so I could get family into emergency shelter that would not take the rabbit. The rabbit belonged to a little girl whose mother had been a domestic violence victim for the majority of that little girl's life. And she found a lot of stability in her comfort animal. But they were homeless and shelters would not take her bunny. Her bunny that had been stability, safety, something to care for. So we found a foster home for the bunny so we could get that family into shelter. So as the mom was able to work towards stability, we were able to get them back to the bunny, but also get them to stability. This other picture is very near and dear to my heart. Brooke, who's now in Center Zone, when she was up north, had a young 19-year-old girl whose mother had been diagnosed with schizophrenia. The mother had grown violent and was acting out towards the young woman. She was 19.